Hi, I'm Sonya White Jaguar. Welcome to White Jaguar Weekend Read, my weekly audiobook series. Today I'm reading my free book, Writing Alan Rickman's Autobiography, a fan fiction romance. Chapter 6, Boudoir Art. Alan and I talked for hours until we'd drunk all of his gin. I have no idea how late it was by the time he took me by the hand and led me down the narrow hallway to his bedroom. We were both a little tipsy and giggled as we stumbled our way there. Upon entering, I was surprised to discover that the room was tiny, barely large enough for a king-size bed and a dresser in the corner. What caught my eye at once was an acrylic painting on the wall across from the bed. Two lovers were locked in an intimate embrace at the height of pleasure. Since the figures were drawn in profile, the ecstasy on both of their faces was plain to see. Mainly primary colors were used, so that boldly accentuated the energy. This piece looked and felt different from the watercolor in the living room of the two fish swimming in opposite directions. Curious about who created it, I examined the corners to look for the artist's signature. Barely noticeable in the folds of the bedsheet at the bottom of the painting was a small chicken scratch of the word Rickman. I pointed to the signature and looked at Alan quizzically. "Yes, I made that," he said dismissively. "A long time ago. I wasn't really pleased with the perspective and the proportions of the torsos, but it's okay, I suppose. I was young and still learning all those technical aspects that make a good composition. I hung it up there to remind me of my former self and how far I've come since then. Does it bother you?" "No," I answered, perhaps too quickly. I wasn't lying. Regardless of Alan's assessment of his skill, his talent impressed me. The emotion expressed by the lovers was electric. I couldn't take my eyes off of the piece. Alan had told me early on that this was the kind of reaction he expected art to evoke. Nevertheless, such raw passion intimidated me. If that was what Alan wanted from me, I didn't think I could provide it. "I'd like to show you what art means to me," he said, and added with a sly smile, "if you're willing to go along with me." Feigning confidence, I smiled in return as I said, "Okay." He opened the top drawer of the dresser and pulled out a red silk scarf that had been neatly folded into a triangle. He unfolded it with a theatrical flourish of his wrist. The scarf was so long that one end draped to the floor. What am I getting myself into? My heart raced as I asked him, "You're not going to tie me up, are you?" Alan rolled his eyes and said reassuringly, "I'm not that sort of person." He then placed the scarf around his neck and with a few deft turns fashioned it into a cravat. Because of the scarf's length, one end fell and swayed between his legs. "Do you like to play dress-up?" he asked. I wasn't sure where he was going with this, but I decided to humor him. I nodded. Then he sidled up to me. As he ran the long end of the scarf along my shoulders, he whispered, "I told you earlier, when we were talking about the films I directed, that I believe in the power of women. You are a beautiful, strong woman, and I believe in you. I want you to be comfortable. Sometimes pretending to be somebody else, like an actor does, can make you feel more comfortable being yourself." "What do you want me to do?" I asked. "Play along with me and pretend to be a model. Lie in bed and pose for me, wearing only this scarf." I had a penchant for featuring colorful men in my romance novels, but none were as creative and full of surprises as Alan. I didn't know if he was usually this way or if the gin was helping him release his inhibitions. He then pulled the duvet halfway down the bed. After fluffing up the pillows, he tossed them onto the middle of the bed. "I won't watch as you get into character." He untied the scarf and wrapped it around his head to cover his eyes. We couldn't stop laughing. I felt like a kid again. Then Alan said in a sing-song voice, "Let me know when you're ready." Taken up in the heat of the moment, I didn't stop to think about anything. The gin might have been influencing me, too. I removed my clothes and climbed onto the bed. I was still giggling as I tried to look seductive while reclining against the pillows. "I think I'm ready," I said. Alan removed the scarf and, with his eyes closed, threw it at me like a bride tossing a bouquet at the end of a wedding ceremony. After I caught it, I asked, "What do you want me to do now?" "Cover yourself." Uncertain if I was doing it correctly, I concealed my torso by laying the scarf in folds. "What do you think?" When Alan opened his eyes, he looked me up and down for several moments, taking in the sight with what I can only describe as an artist's critical gaze. Then he moved around the bed, muttering to himself as he shifted the pillows under me. He picked up one end of the scarf and laid it on top of the pillows around my head. In doing so, he exposed the side of one of my breasts. Although his hands came close to brushing my skin, he didn't touch me. After he stepped back to survey me again, he said, "You look like a work of art." A moment later, his face broke into a wide grin, and he continued, "Allowing yourself to be vulnerable with me is beautiful and sexy, and powerful. We're tapping into the nature of boudoir art. Have you ever explored boudoir art?" While I was aware of boudoir photography and its potential to enhance the intimacy between partners, I hadn't discussed it with any previous lovers. "No," I admitted. "As a romance author, you're an expert in writing about the bedroom. Are you open to exploring the art medium as well? Will you let me sketch you? I'd like to explore every inch of you, every way I can." I said thoughtfully. "After all the time I've spent watching you draw imaginary flowers on the terrace, I think it's about time you draw a flower you can actually touch." We both laughed. After Alan left to retrieve a sketch pad and colored pencils, I found myself alone in the room with the two lovers on the wall before me. I contemplated the painting for several moments. Were they real people? If so, were they still together? Or was this moment of passion, captured in reds, blues, and yellows, the last remnant of their relationship? As Alan's footsteps grew louder, indicating his return, I pushed away a gnawing fear that he'd cast me aside one day, with a piece of artwork on his wall serving as the only proof I'd been there. Join me next time for Chapter 7, The Art of Lovemaking. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, so you'll be notified when the next video is posted. You can also sign up for my newsletter on my website, sonyawhitejaguar.com, and get notified that way. I send out newsletters twice a month. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.